I try not to spend too much time focusing on things like celebrity culture or partisan politics on this channel, as I feel oftentimes it's used as a distraction, those sorts of issues from other important issues. But I saw this tweet from Sarah Silverman this morning, and I have to ask, why is something like this allowed? So she's like clearly making a threat, what I interpret as a violent threat. She says, "Wake up and join the resistance. Once the military is with us, fascists get overthrown. Mad King and his handlers go by." So she's calling for a military-led overthrow of the Trump government. And this is not, again, it's something that I might just overlook or not bring up, but it's happened, seems to be a coordinated effort, not just from a few fringe celebrities are we seeing this kind of rhetoric. It actually seems to be a pattern that's really encouraged by the powers that be. We've seen some other tweets since the election and right beforehand. One that has also been criticized was Michael Shannon's tweet where he basically said that Trump supporters, that Trump supporters, it's their turn, it's their time to die now. So some very violent threats here that, I've been frustrated with the censorship of sites like Twitter and Reddit, based on other issues. But why are things like this, why do they get a pass when they are easily just as, if not more, dangerous? Especially, I mean, Sarah Silverman has a fair amount of followers, and she's basically telling them it's time to be or start a violent overthrow, essentially. So this is what I mean, I consider this to be a dangerous trend, first of all, and it's frustrating just the amount of hypocrisy in a statement like this. I know everyone likes to point out, and there is some truth to the hypocrisy of, and again, I don't mean to focus too much on, make this too much of a partisan issue, but liberals often depict themselves as a more peaceful and tolerant than other political groups, but we're seeing most of the violence as of late coming from leftists, or violent threats in this case. Now, it's, in my opinion, particularly hypocritical of someone like Sarah Silverman to come out with a tweet like this, especially considering, if you remember back at the Democratic National Convention, I know people continue to discuss, and more information has come out regarding Hillary Clinton's rigging of the primaries. But it was known at the time that Bernie Sanders had really been cheated out of having any sort of chance of actually winning the primary. And basically, Hillary just attempted to rig the primaries and do her best to attempt to blow off the entire electoral process, something that I think should be worrisome for all Americans. And Sarah Silverman, her response at the DNC after the audience was frustrated over this and started booing Hillary and chanting Bernie, she scolded people in her own party who were frustrated by how corrupt the electoral process was, and rightly so. She told them that they're being ridiculous. That was her response on the DNC stage after. And this was just in response to a few audience members booing and chanting Bernie. She had to stop them and say, "You're being ridiculous for booing over basically subverting the entire electoral process through it was during the primaries at that time." But that's something that people would rightly be angered over. And she basically blew that off like, "Oh, you're acting ridiculous. You people are being childish, and we need to unite." She was chanting unity back at the audience, and now all of a sudden unity does not seem like a very important value for Sarah Silverman. So to me, there's a total hypocrisy there that during the DNC, she was not at all concerned about the corruption within her own party, and actually scolded supporters within her own party that were worried about corruption. But now all of a sudden she's calling for a violent overthrow. I mean, I don't think that I need to elaborate too much on also how ridiculous and dangerous an idea of actions like this that could lead to a civil war. But you have to ask, I mean, someone like Sarah Silverman, again, I know it's sort of, she's a celebrity. I would often not even report on what someone like her would, what she would have to say. But she's invited, she has connections in the DNC, in the Democratic Party. She was invited to the last Democratic National Convention. So she does have some voice within that party, and again, her own followers. But does she not have the any awareness of what these types of actions, what they lead to, and what they have led to in so many countries in recent years? I mean, does she see the collapse and crisis of all these other countries across the Arab Spring, and all these other George Soros and banker-funded revolutions across the world, where we go knock out their leaders, we completely destabilize and further destroy these already troubled countries? I suppose she sees that and asks, yes, please, us too, let's destabilize America and have some military-led leftist group, I guess, propped up by the same people we're fighting against, as we see in other countries. I mean, I'm just assuming that's the way that it would go. But that's somehow a more reasonable scenario than accepting that her own corrupt candidate that she fully backed at the time that her candidate lost. Rather than accept that, she believes, I guess, it's more reasonable to completely destabilize America and have some military leftist group come in and take over. Because we've basically tested that in a number of other countries in the world, and it's gone so poorly. I guess she decides that we should try that again. In my opinion, that's being ridiculous and dangerous. And it is part of a very ridiculous and dangerous trend that we're seeing across the media. And I honestly don't know. I don't know if she's just not aware of how hypocritical something like this seems, how it comes across. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it's part of some coordinated effort, because we're seeing this narrative pushed in such a widespread way and by so many celebrities. It seems like it could also be a coordinated effort to distract and divide Americans, so that if a crisis like this that they seem to be promoting happens, something like a civil war, if there is a big crisis, then basically the powers that be can step in and take over after a crisis like this. And the largely manufactured civil unrest that seems to be promoted in the media. So obviously, promoting a civil war is completely ridiculous and dangerous. I wasn't sure about reporting on something like this, but it is just, again, it's worrisome, and just the total hypocrisy. And I've been frustrated with media coverage in general. And it's just another instance. So I wanted to point out what's happening with that. I'll probably do a follow-up on this video if more information comes out. If Silverman, I guess, responds, I'm sure she will receive criticism from lots of people over these tweets. Thanks for checking in.